All right. So, hot topic. What might be stalling your fat loss process or journey? There could be a ton of factors, but I'm gonna walk through a couple of them that I've seen impact some of the individuals I've worked with over the years, and maybe there's some components that you may be missing that we can touch on. So, I want to start with number one is obviously not hitting or not consistently being in adequate calorie deficit. That's number one, because if we fluctuate from day to day, even in a 2 or 3 day cycle, what will happen is we'll be at break even when we get to a 7 day standpoint. We need to burn 3,500 calories in a 3,500 calorie deficit to burn 1 pound of fat. So evaluating all the components that go into what you're consuming is very, very important. And we can be off on that. I've seen it so many times. I've been off myself. So it's not that it's not uncommon to see some of these trackers and things be off 200 to 300 calories, and that can add up from day to day. So that's number one. Number two is poor nutritional choices, processed foods. So eating too many processed foods, refined carbs, sugars can cause insulin spikes and fat storage. So it can slow the process of your body utilizing fat as a fuel source. So when we talk about macros and I start coaching a little bit heavier on protein and pulling some of the simple components, simple carbs out, and talk about processed foods, that's why. That's one of the reasons, because processed foods also can have some other chemicals that are not conducive for the fat loss journey. They can disrupt some other components within the body. They can spike the insulin, and you not even think that it's going to spike the insulin. So basically, what it's doing is it's causing you to store or hold on to that fat instead of utilize it as a fuel source. So another one, obviously, insufficient protein intake can hinder muscle preservation and the fat loss journey. So number one, not staying in calorie deficit. Number two, poor nutrition quality. Okay. Number three is hormone imbalance. I've been talking with a few of my clients and going through the process with them right now. I'm in that journey myself, and man, it's eye opening um, how deficient you can be, even though your doctor says you're in normal free testosterone ranges. That doesn't mean anything. We got to take it two more levels. You got to look at all the hormonal profile, okay, and identify if some of those specific hormones are allowing that free hormone to be utilized properly. So that's a whole nother ball game. Obviously, if you guys need more resources for that, I have some documents I can send over just to educate you. And I talked about this a couple weeks ago. There's a good podcast out there that really touches on this as well. So again, hormone balance, low testosterone levels can lead to reduced muscle mass, obviously increased fat. That's going to be part of the process. If our testosterone is too low, it's going to mess everything up. Just like with a female, if their estrogen, progesterone, and their testosterone is off, it messes everything else up. Okay. Now, elevated cortisol levels is another component that can be a indicator, and that can be a byproduct of low testosterone. So chronic stress, guys. If we're not managing our stress properly, high stress, low sleep, we're basically creating a good environment for fat storage instead of fat loss. So think about that. How are you managing stress, cortisol levels, sleep, stress response? Okay. So really try to manage your stress, try to get the sleep quality up. The other one is going to be lack of strength training. I know in my program, I don't necessarily have to push strength training in the front side of the program until we master some other components. We master nutrition, we master rest recovery. Now with some clients who, if they're already doing resistance training, when they come into my program, I will meet them where they're at, and I will modify and help make that process a lot better and a lot more efficient. But it's not a must on the front side. I would like to see some people master some of the components. So if you're not doing any resistance training minimum 3 days a week, guys, you're missing a total component of the fat loss journey. Basically, you're making your process a little slower. But again, if you can't hit some of the other components, I don't want to throw everything at you at once in my program. But if you're not in my program, you guys need to be doing resistance training. If you need help with that, that's why I have the program for. So, um, muscle mass increases basal metabolic rate, your BMR, so what you burn. And without resistance training, men may lose muscle mass, obviously as they age, and then obviously it slows the fat loss process. The more muscle mass you carry, it's going to punch up your BMR. It's going to be a lot more efficient for you to burn calories. And when we manipulate your macros specifically and get some other components in line, we can create a really good environment for fat loss for you. So, lack of strength training. Excessive cardio is another component that can hinder your fat loss journey. And the reason I say this, and one of my clients was doing some running. I was like, hey, don't do that anymore. There's no reason to do it right now. You're carrying too much weight. It's too much pounding. What it does, overdoing cardio without strength training can lead to muscle mass loss and reduce metabolic rate. And it also can trigger the hunger hormone response. And when that happens, what happens is, okay, you've lost muscle mass, you've lost a few pounds, which was lean tissue from the running component. Now we're hungry, right? So then we start overeating and we start putting that weight back on, and we put that weight back on in percentage of body fat because we lost our muscle. That's not a good place to be. So, and it also causes a lot more stress on the body. So running is a stressor on the body. It's an impact component, and if we're trying to manage our stress response, running is probably not the best thing to do if we're in that fat loss journey. Now, if we're past that fat loss journey, I would say, hey, do your running, manage your loads. What I'm saying there is your work rest intervals, because running does a lot of micro trauma. So just be careful from that process. Not saying you shouldn't do it, but you shouldn't do it in a certain phase. And then I just talked about this a little bit, is chronic stress. Chronic stress is a big one. Managing your stress. Stress can lead to emotional eating, higher calorie, sugary foods, because you're craving those. You're craving that endorphin hit, right? So you have a stress response, and then you're like, oh man, I need this because it makes me feel good. It gives me that feel good. Go walk or do something else. Do your breathing, do your cold therapy, do your resistance training to manage your stress response. That's going to be much better. Or you're walking, or get your steps in or your miles in. So prolonged stress releases cortisol, which can lead to obviously fat storage. Again, we talked about that a little bit up in the hormones. Inadequate sleep, it's a big one, guys. Got to work on this. I work on it as well. Tracking your sleep, managing your sleep, creating a better environment for your sleep. A few weeks ago, right before Thanksgiving, we finally got 100% blackout blinds in our bedroom, because we had blinds, but it was letting too much light in. So try to create an environment for good sleep, because inadequate sleep disrupts hormones like ghrelin, which is your hunger hormone, which so does excessive cardio will affect your ghrelin. You'll want to eat more. Specifically, you'll go after carbs or those quick hitters. And then leptin, obviously fullness is the other one. So both those hormones are affected by inadequate sleep. So if you're not getting your sleep, you're gonna want to eat, and you're gonna not feel full. So those components. Leading to overeating, lack of sleep reduces recovery and energy for workouts as well. Your quality of all that stuff drops. So manage that. There may be some metabolic conditions. Sedentary lifestyle, obviously. The metabolic conditions are more of going to be the hormones. So if you need to really go down that rabbit hole, but you have to have the right person, and you have to be an advocate for your own health, because most general practitioners don't have the skill set, or they won't do the proper testing to give you the knowledge to make a proper decision. And that's unfortunate, but that's where we're at with our healthcare right now. You got to be a huge advocate. You got to educate yourself. There's a ton of resources out here. Again, hit me up if you need some more. So you could have hyperthyroidism, metabolic syndrome, insulin resistance. Obviously, you get your sugar. Where's your sugar at? Is your thyroid, get all your thyroids tested? Because again, I have that condition going on, but it was not necessarily my thyroid. It was some other components causing my thyroid not to work properly. So I'm going to fix those other things to help balance out my thyroid. I'm going to start on my a thyroid supplementation here shortly. Should be in either tonight or tomorrow. So I'll keep you guys posted in that journey. So again, these are all areas that can be impacting your fat loss journey. Now there may be some other ones that I didn't mention. I'm going to run through them again. Inadequate tracking or calorie deficit on a consistent basis will affect your fat loss. Poor nutrition consumption, so poor quality of food being consumed, can impact your fat loss journey. Hormonal balance, testosterone can impact it. Lack of strength training obviously can affect your metabolic process, which makes it harder for you to lose that fat. Lack of strength training. Excessive cardio can be an issue. It just depends on where you're at. No, obviously it's different for each person and where they're at in that journey. Chronic stress, we talked about, inadequate sleep, and then underlying metabolic conditions. A lot of times the underlying metabolic conditions are created from the environment you have been living in for an extended period of time. What I'm saying there is you may have caused your underlying conditions, not by purpose, but by showing up the same way over and over and over. We create some of the metabolic conditions and some of the problems. Unfortunately, our food is some of that culprit, and some of our medical care or providers who are not giving us the tools we need to utilize to be successful. So that's another day in time. So hopefully this helps a little bit, kind of peel back and evaluate each of those areas for yourself and see if one of them is sticking out, and address them one at a time. You don't want to address them all at once. So you want to try to master one at a time and then work your way down. So if you have any other questions, hit me up. Go out there and take care of yourself, guys.